This is Anne and her mom, Cecilia, and they are among my heroes also because we've talked about people who have gone to help a loved one. There's a story in my book called The Kid from Kraznoyarsk. It just kind of rang. Now, Kraznoyarsk, Siberia is not just your average Russian city. It's way out there on the muskegs and the tundra. And it is 50 and 60 below zero in the winter, and it is 90 degrees plus in the summer. So it's a place of extremes. And the little girl, how did we introduce her in the book? We didn't use her real name.
I think you called her Christina, huh?
I think we called her Christina in the book.
Remember.
And is that what we would prefer today? We talk about Christina?
Yeah, she
doesn't want her actual name used, so that is just perfectly fine with us. Christina was how old when you went to adopt her, and how did you find out about her, Anne?
She was 13 months old.
13 months old. Was it winter or summer?
It was summer, and it was about 95 degrees and 100% humidity, and no fans, no air conditioning, nothing.
And they were doing as good a job as they could in the orphanage there, though, right?
Yeah, and yet they didn't have much to go with, so they did the best they could.
Christina's actual mother, I think, Cecilia, you were telling me, had a little bit of vodka at the time that she gave birth.
That's what I heard.
The
mother was kind of drunk when she had the baby, and she gave her up the same day.
Same day, yeah.
Same day.
To the orphanage. Now, the story is that, these kids, they end up in an orphanage. They do take care of them so they can keep body and soul together, but then when they turn 16 years old, they kick them out of the orphanage. It's quite a thing to be kicked out of the orphanage onto the streets of Kraznoyarsk, and just imagine what that might be like.
Yeah.
So, would you describe Christina as a little girl?
Oh, she was the cutest thing I ever did see. They had been flying, 12, 14, 15 hours from Kraznoyarsk to Moscow to New York. My husband and I went to the airport to pick him up, and I figure I'm wearing glasses and this child has never seen me. She's going to start screaming or something. She came out with her, carrying her, and she said to me, "Here's the baby." She was exhausted, just about ready to drop. And I said, "I don't want to scare her." And I went like that, and she just opened her arms and came right to me. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Big smile.
You guys have a pretty good relationship, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and talk a little bit about what Christina was like as a little girl.
Let's see, there's a lot, but the first thing I noticed, well, in my mind, being a mother was someone who took care of the child and comforted, and I couldn't wait to do this. And the first week or so that we had her, she was crawling around and she hit the side of the sofa leg and hurt herself, not drastically, but anyway, so I was waiting for her to come running over to me crying, like I've seen other kids do with their parents, and she just rolled up in a ball, and I had to go over to her and pick her up, and she was not receptive. She didn't know how to ask for any kind of affection. And anyway, she always had to have things her own way, ever since day one. I mean, she was just like an independent person. And
also, when she was frustrated, she was in the crib, she would start banging her head.
Yeah.
Banging her head.
I remember that story. Yeah.
Banging her head on the floor, didn't matter what kind of floor it was.
Or on the sides of the crib, whacking her up. She
Yeah.
cured her from that by putting those bumpers around, and once she hit the bumper and it didn't make any noise, she quit doing it.
That was funny. I mean, that was really strange because she didn't speak the language yet for like a month or two. She couldn't walk, even though she was like
13 months.
And but when I put those bumpers on, it was just so weird to me that she banged her head back expecting to feel the pain, and then when she felt the pillow, she was like, And I said, that's right. I put that on there. But I mean, this is a kid that, I hadn't been able to really communicate with. And trying to remember this, so many things. She used to throw, well, this is going on a little ways, but she'd start throwing tantrums, not just once a day, but all day long. And they were like major tantrums. They weren't just, crying in a corner or whatever. They were like throwing things, cutting things, drawing all over everything. I remember when she was 3, she had a lamp in her room. It was a cute little lamp I had bought. It was a ceramic lamp, and she just was throwing one of her fits, and I didn't know at the time, so I put her in her room, because I didn't know. Everyone's like, you got to punish them, whatever. And so I put her in the room, and I came in a few minutes later, and the whole lamp was broken, and the wire was hanging out. I mean, it was like, is this what kids do? I mean, I had no idea. I'm thinking,
This was your first
yeah,
kid.
this is my first child, and I'm thinking, how do people have more than one? I mean, I can't imagine. I was like exhausted, following this kid around, afraid she's destroying everything, just out of anger.
And by the way, just talk about courage. She does have 2 from Kraznoyarsk.
Yeah,
Christina's younger
true.
brother is a little bit easier to manage, yeah?
he doesn't have attachment disorder. I mean, I found all this out later because I started thinking that I got these, I don't know if anybody has this similar thing, but in my mind, I was getting to a point where I didn't feel like I was right for this child. Like I was no good, or something was wrong here, that I was so angry with her and she was always throwing fits. And anyway, so I started seeking out help because I realized that, this can't be right. So I found a counselor who had her come in, and then she diagnosed her with attachment disorder, and I knew she had alcohol, fetal alcohol.
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
And also ADHD, which I found out later from school that she had that. She was very hyper. She would just go from one thing to the next, and never stop. And so anyway, so I took her to counseling for a while, and it did help with the attachment disorder. But we still had the school issues, and we still had, well, at that time we got my son, who is very loving child, and she was like horrible with him. She was really bad. And he would come in when she'd be throwing her fits. He would try to come in and he'd be worried about her, and she'd be throwing things at him, and it was bad. So
I think she probably was a bit jealous because Nikolai had 4 months with a real mother who held him and who breastfed him and everything else. She just could not take care of him money-wise, clothes-wise, food-wise, or anything. So that's why she gave her up. And I think she saw that when the new one came in, and she never had that. So there was a little friction there from her side as to, I never got any of that, there's something wrong with me.
He was more manageable.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
But she never, and I think to this day, whenever the mother was going to leave, she would get very disturbed.
Mm.
If she was going even to the store, even if I was there taking care of her, and would give her maybe a shirt of hers or something, as long as she had something that belonged to the mother that she could hold on to, then it was okay.
It's
then
called
they
a
could go.
transitional object.
As long as she had that and she was holding on to it. Even till today, Annie's comes up to my house and touches on the cell phone. Where are you? How long are you going to be?
She's almost 15, and when I leave the house to go anywhere for more than a half hour, I get a phone call.
Yeah.
But she won't admit that she needs me, but,
She has to
it's
get drunk.
funny.
Mm-hmm.
But, where's I going with that?
So when you first heard about us from, I'm trying to remember her name.
Want me to say her name?
Didn't talk to her.
Carol.
Lady in the school system that knew about attachment disorder
Right.
and that adopted Carol Monahan. Yeah, and but you were a little skeptical when you first brought her here.
Oh, yeah. I'm very traditional, usually.
Yeah, what is this weird thing with
You know,
attaching
what is this guy
wires,
with wires and yeah,
wires to their heads? And,
Sure, he's gonna change her. Sure.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So,
And then he's saying, "Oh, she's just so wonderful," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, right. I've been hearing this for years." Everyone thinks she's wonderful because that's a kid with this attachment thing. That's what they'll do.
She is cute. She is
they're
beautiful.
nice to everyone else, but you know they're horrible with with their parents.
Yeah. Now, when did you first notice actual changes, either of you, Cecilia and...
With Len's, I noticed a lot of change. Personality, not personality, but I mean, she was actually nice. I could
What?
say she was not. I remember coming in and saying, "What the heck are you doing?" She was actually pleasant for like half of a day. I mean, I've never experienced that before. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have day on day on day, and year on year with a kid who's always angry, and it's like a
practitioner.
miracle. And I said, "Whoa, I don't know what he's doing, but okay."
Well,
I'm
with
in.
me, I know that she has always loved me, and I have always been in love with her from the beginning. But in the last maybe year or so, I've noticed huge difference.
Say more about that,
Now
Cecilia.
she comes in, and there's a big smile, and she comes right up to me, throws her arms around me, gives me a big hug. Before that, I had to go looking for her and say, "Tasha, how are you?" And then I would try and give her the hug. I mean, she never pushed me away, but she didn't respond. But now she'll come in and she's got the big smile. If you're into something, you're doing something, and if it's something where she knows that she can excel, she jumps right in. She came to visit 2 days ago, and my daughter with her daughter were painting a room. 2 seconds later, Tasha is up there.
She's painting away.
She's painting away
Yeah.
with them. I had to drag her home because she had school the next day. But
Yeah.
they were together
Uh-huh.
having a fabulous time.
And
I mean, she'll even now, to this point now, where she'll sit down, and I don't have to question anything. She'll just have a conversation with me. I mean, this is a teenager. You don't expect them to speak to you. That's what everybody tells me. And I mean, I'm just amazed that it happens once a month. I'm just like, well, okay, yeah. Well, really, is that whatever it is? I mean, she's showing me her artwork in school, and this year in school, that's the other thing. All along, I had a fight with the school district because no, she doesn't really need help, even though she was failing every subject. And I know she's a very smart kid, but she just can't handle the regular school way of teaching. So I finally was able to get her, thanks to you, get her help last year.
we actually got the school system, the Beacon school system, to pay for a quantitative EEG and an evaluation of her brain. And boy, did it show that she needed help. When we were done, the guidance counselor said, Dr. Larsen, thank you so much. You've given us an education. He had a kid that was adopted as well, and he faced some of the same difficulties, and he said it was so important for him to hear that.
And her,
And
Right,
Anne
this-
had been
this-
fighting with the schools from the beginning, from the
Yeah.
first grade, constantly telling them this child needs attention, needs to be handled differently.
Yeah.
They wouldn't pay any
I mean,
attention.
she still, I have to say, she still hates school, but that's who she is. I've accepted that's who she is. She's not going to be this model, academic kid. And that's not her. She's more the other way.
She's an
artistic.
athlete.
Yeah.
And athletic.
She's quite
But
athletic.
it's
She's
the funny thing is this year, she's in 9th grade. She is getting 90s. She's getting some 80s. I mean, the only class she's failing is gym, and that's because she's still obstinate in that way where she doesn't like the gym teacher, so she's going to show him, and she's going to fail gym. So I just, I got to let go.
She's got a will.
Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
I can't force everything.
Hey, Lexi, let me invite you to come up here and just take my place for a minute and talk about what it's like to treat this child. And we're using the name Christina. So this is her bud, who
That's
really
what he
works
said
with
to
her.
Miss
And
Christina.
this is Alexandra Linardakis, who, by the
I
way,
put
just
it too.
finished her registered nurse program at SUNY Ulster, and is one of my senior clinicians, and just really has a wonderful, wonderful way about her with children and with teenagers.
So I've started working with Tasha and Anne.
Christina.
Just read Natasha.
Okay.
And I did it too.
Okay, so I started working with Christina.
And what do we call you, Bridget?
You can call me, because everybody knows I'm here.
What I found was that there was a lot of really high frequency, really nervous kind of activity going on for this young woman, and she seemed to really trust the EEG biofeedback. She seemed to really just have a change in her own skin that she began to trust more and more. When I started working with her, we were doing the Z-score training and infralow frequency training, so that's a little bit different than the lens. So she was actually having to work to get reward feedback, and the movie would play if she was meeting certain criteria, and so she would have the impetus to want to see the movie play, and so she was choosing movies she really wanted to watch, and she would change her brain waves that way. And I think we were all surprised. Christine? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Christine? Christine and her mother and I at the changes she was having. I think she was having a lot easier time sleeping, so she wasn't taking melatonin anymore in the evenings, and I think she was having less hyperactivity that she could tangibly report upon, in that she was less hyperactive, and she became really I didn't know her so well before, but I have to say she seems to be a very good self-reporter. So I would get the report of how she was after her last session from her and from her mother, and they would oftentimes be in agreement as to how things had been. And one of the things I really liked seeing was that there was a change in her empathy and a sense of remorse when she would hurt other people or do things that were not to their liking. So she started to have a real sense of that, and be less obstinate with her mother, which is a good thing.
Not every day, but a lot of days.
And in the beginning, that was a real problem, wasn't it? Feeling remorse for
Yeah.
when she hurt her brother or hurt anybody else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
And
it.
Lexi has done some really, really wonderful work with her. They're in there for quite a while, and it's like a buddy system or a mentorship system. I think she really looks up to you.
Yeah, she does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing which you brought to mind that I had forgotten about is when she was little, even though I had taken her for counseling for the attachment disorder, she still, I would go to lay down with her so she could go to sleep, and it'd be hours of me
Right.
waiting for her to get tired, and I would be almost asleep, and
Right.
it just, there was no break, so.
And you're sleeping a little bit better too.
Yeah, I'm sleeping a little better now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And Cecilia, any last wise words for the person that you live with now? How she is different?
Oh, she's very, very different. She's outgoing. She seems more joyful and not so afraid of letting out what she has inside of her, the way that she really is. She has a cousin that is 25, and they're crazy about each other. And that girl is going to get married in August, and asked Tasha to be in the wedding party.
Christina?
And Tasha is absolutely thrilled that she's
We'll
going
have
to
to
be
edit that out.
in
Yeah.
part of that and everything else. And the funny thing is that her cousin is studying to work with children with problems. She's going for a degree for that. And she's wonderful, but she loves Tasha to pieces.
Okay.
She says Tasha is wonderful, and she said, I had her visiting this week because she was talking about the wedding and plans for the wedding, and she said, I see such a big difference now that I'm seeing her face to face, because they are always emailing each other and everything else. She says it's amazing how she's come out of that shell and changed, and it's great. It's great to see. So
Thank
that's
you
to
very
your
much.
credit.
Thank you so much
One
for
thing
that.
I've noticed too with her is that she told me, for her to tell me, to admit to anything that she needs anybody, but she
Vulnerable.
told me recently that Huh?
She was vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a big deal
She
for
said,
her.
what did she say? Something like, I said, well, you know, you have to stop calling me every time I leave the house every 5 minutes. I don't like when you're not home. I like when you're, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty good.
Well, attachment disorder is regarded as one of the most difficult of all.
Well, they're like
Problems.
serial killers or
Well,
have attachment
they
disorder.
tend
That's-
to not develop a conscience right off the bat, and may last for a while. Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for coming up. You did splendidly, my dear.
I like this stuff.
But you did it. Good job.
Thank
Good
you.
job. My pleasure.